Hoping, hoping everyone had a nice Purim. Let's go on. Chapter 5. Okay.
Stop video.
There. So the way this works is, or the way the book works, is he's explained to us. He's explained to us what this trait is of watchfulness, of taking responsibility for oneself. He explained how to acquire it, by making time to think about what you're doing. And now he's going to speak. Chapter 5 are the detractions, right? Why people are why we don't necessarily follow this. So he says there are 3 factors. Hine mafsidei hamida hazot. Mafsid is to lose, is to the 3 factors which cause loss of and distancing from watchfulness are, he says, busyness, cynicism, and bad company. And he's going to explain each one. So,
There we go.
number 1, regarding worldly involvement and preoccupation. We have already spoken about this earlier. We spoke about that quite a bit, that we get involved in our worldly involvement and preoccupation to the degree that we lose perspective and we lose priority of what we are doing and what we should be doing. So he says, for while a person is occupied in their worldly affairs, their thoughts are bound by the chains of the burden that weighs on them, and it is impossible for them to give thought to their deeds. And he quotes in Pirkei Avot, minimize your worldly occupations and toil in the Torah. That's what it says in Pirkei.
Wow.
So there are two things over here.
I'm in a class right now. Let me call you back.
So he says, occupying oneself to obtain a livelihood is indeed necessary, but it is not necessary to occupy oneself to such an extent that he wrote. So sometimes I try to change the into they, but he has no room left for service of God. For this, we are commanded to fix times for Torah study. Now it's interesting because I think for most of us, we live in a very affluent world. Definitely under siege at the moment, but we live in a very affluent world. And the question is, when do you find the balance? When people speak about the what do they call it? Work-life balance, work-family balance. I think we have a particular challenge with this, in that our society has placed great emphasis on working and working hard and achieving and becoming wealthy. And the question is, when is it enough? When is it enough? When do you put your work aside, or you say, you know what, I've done enough work, or I will only devote a certain amount of time to my work, and I will make fixed times for Torah study, for endeavors which are, let's say, more meaningful or different, more elevating. People have, I think I've noticed definitely that people have definitely done that with exercise, right? People have become much more aware of the importance of exercise and have dedicated time to do that. The question is, at the expense of what, right? Sometimes that's at the expense of family, that's at the expense of other things and not work. So the question is, well, here we are having a dedicated dedicated time for Talmud Torah. Someone's microphone is on. Donna, I think it could be yours. Do you mind muting? Do you know how to mute?
When I'm on
Oh.
here, I do.
You know what? I think it was Norma's. Norma, do you have a noise in the background? Maybe. Oh, but that helped. That Norma's helped. So I actually want to know from. I am asking you a question, mainly because I just got off an airplane. But I'd like to ask you a question today, and the question is. The question is, what do you think is a healthy balance or perspective to look at our endeavors? You know, what he's saying over here is one, as definitely from a Jewish point of view, one should make time to study, right? We all, you know, the joke where it's a woman that's living in a shtetl and she has a problem with mice, and she calls in the exterminator. And was that Uri saying he knows the joke? Oh, sorry, Uri, that you have to leave us now. Okay, I guess not a good joke. So this woman has mice in the house, and she's very perturbed, and she tries everything, and she gets the exterminator and this and that and all. And eventually someone says, you know, you should ask the rabbi. The rabbi, she says, what's he going to do about my mice? So her friend says, no, just ask the rabbi. The rabbi is a good rabbi. So she goes to the rabbi and says, Rabbi, I've got a very strange request for you, but a question, but I've got mice and I can't seem to get rid of them. So he says, that's not a strange question. I deal with that all the time. When can I come to your house tomorrow? So she says, fine, come to the house. She comes to the rabbi comes to the house, says, okay, you wait outside, I'm going in and I'm doing my thing. And when I come out, you won't ever have any more mice. So the rabbi goes in and then comes out a few minutes later, and she's like, that's it. And off he goes. And she goes back in and she's looking around and no mice. And a day goes by, a week goes by, a few weeks go by, a month goes by, no mice. And she's amazed. How did the rabbi cure this problem that no one else could cure? So eventually her curiosity gets the better of her, and she goes to the rabbi and says, Rabbi, you have to tell me, how did you do it? How did you get rid of all the mice? So he says, very simple. I went in, I gave them all a bar mitzvah. You'll never see them again. It's a very sad story, right? So, you know, that, I don't know, it would be interesting to know how that developed and whether there was a Christian influence on that or whatever. But, you know, that became the story of American Jewry, is that kids got educated until bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, and that was it. And then that's it. You've got your Jewish education, which is terrible because, as we know, Jewish education is an ongoing endeavor. Jewish education is the greatest mitzvah that we should be doing constantly. Throughout our lives, we learn. So, what's my question to you? I guess my question to you is: could you see that turning around? Could you see? Is there a movement for more people to be learning and to value what learning is?
I don't think so.
No?
I don't think so. It might be that, but I don't, depends, I guess, on where you live. And how involved you are with a Jewish life in your home. And
Right.
how much kids have so many things to do now with sports and clubs and whatever. They're running all over the place constantly. So I don't know what the answer to that is.
Yes, Norma, you got to put on your mic. Yeah.
I think part of it comes with age. As we mature and get older, we seek to find more answers for ourselves by studying and learning Torah. I think I agree with Donna to some degree that, when kids are busy but part of it has to do with the parents' influence. But I find that for myself, as I aged and got older and older, I became more curious about Torah and studied more and more.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I would agree with you. That's very insightful. Children are don't generally make their own decisions about, if parents and the society would demand it, they would do it. And when you're right, older people are more self-selecting.
I think that many parents set the tone, and they're the role models and the mentors for their children. I think the reason, at least I know why I sent my children to day school, is I didn't feel like I could provide the Jewish education, and I wanted it for my children. But it's only going to get worse as time goes on, that the more generations who don't feel capable of educating their children Jewishly, are they apt to go? The Hebrew schools were not strong. And I agree with Donna, between Sunday school, people would say, and I'd hear my friends say, they have soccer practice, so they're going to have to skip Sunday school. Well, that's a parent's decision. If the parents said, sorry, but we're not going to go to soccer on Sunday because we have Hebrew school. So I think a lot comes from the parents.
Right. And if the parents themselves are not making fixed times for Torah, they are going to find it very hard to demand that of their children. Okay, we'll have to start a movement. Every Jew learning 1 hour. What should we start with? 1 hour a week? 1 hour a week. There are actually a lot of programs that have been started. There's actually an incredible program called Daf Yomi. I don't know if you are familiar with it. Learning a page of Talmud a day. And thousands upon thousands of people do it. It's really amazing.
And I'm doing it right now. And I can tell you, the subject we're talking about now is very unappealing. And
are you doing Daf Yomi?
Well, I only get it once a day, and it's called, I don't know what it's called, but I just read what they give me.
Oh, really?
And they're talking about, I'm sure I'm saying it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, where the husband, if he dies, then he has to marry the sister. If the sister died, if the wife dies, the sister has to marry the husband. Or
no, they're two brothers, and the one, yeah, but it kind of gets like that. Interesting. Okay, I didn't. I give a class, Linda. You can.
You know what?
You can join in at 9 o'clock every morning.
Huh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I'd like to spend just a little bit of a detour. This is not in the book, but this is. I think it's a very interesting question. He says over here, occupying oneself to obtain a livelihood is indeed necessary. What is the Jewish view of work? What is the Jewish, the biblical view, the Talmudic view, Jewish societal view of work? And I think there are three approaches. There are three approaches, and which have been taken by different communities, different people throughout the ages and today. The first approach is from the story of the sin of Adam and Eve, when afterwards Adam is punished, right? Everyone is punished, the snake is punished, Eve is punished, and Adam is punished with, by the sweat of your brow you shall eat bread. So that approach it's a necessary evil, right? It's when he says it's indeed necessary, yeah, because Adam and Eve, did the sin, and we're still in a world that was affected by that sin. Jewish belief is that we can bring it out of that level. We're not eternally stuck there. It is up to us, but we are still there, and it's a necessary thing that you have to do. Should you not have to work, that's a wonderful thing, right? If a person would somehow come into a lot of money and not have to work, and they could devote all their days, all their time to study and mitzvot and kind deeds, great, right? There's no real redemptive, elevating aspect to work. Another opinion, not about opinion, but let's say approach to work, was actually made quite well known by Rav Yosef Soloveitchik, the first Rosh Yeshiva of YU, of Yeshiva University, and he has a book called the Lonely Man of Faith, and in there he writes about that in the Genesis story, there are really two accounts of man's creation. And he says one of the accounts says God blessed them, and God said to them, be fertile, have children, and increase, fill the earth and conquer it. And he says that's a mitzvah, that we, humankind, should conquer the earth. That's part of what we are meant to be doing here, just as we are meant to be fixing it, elevating it spiritually. We should be doing the same physically. And our work is not just a necessity. Our work is part of bringing this world to its perfection. So, that.
But in that process, we're destroying our world today.
Well, of course, it's a double-edged sword, right? We need to do it with seichel, right? We need to do it with a mind about what are we doing, why are we doing it, and of course for an eye on our environment and to improve it, not to destroy it. So yes, we need to, for sure do that. I'm not sure that many people do work with this intention, but it is a wonderful idea. There's one more approach, which is kind of in the middle. Not quite sure where to put it. It says in Pirkei Avot that Rabbi Gamliel, the son of Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, said I don't know about the translation excellent, but I left it. Excellent is the study of Torah when combined with a worldly occupation, for toil in them both keeps sin out of one's mind. But study and the Torah, which is not combined with a worldly occupation, in the end comes to be neglected and becomes the cause of sin.
Oh,
Right? That's a pretty strong statement. What did he mean? The Maharal of Prague explains. He says, if a person has an aspect of their life, an important aspect of their life, that they do not take seriously, that they do not approach with excellence, it will encroach on other areas of their life. So if a person says, you know what, the only thing that matters is study, the study of Torah, my spiritual growth and elevation, and right, and he leaves they leave their worldly concerns to chance, or they don't take it seriously. He says that sloppiness that will encroach on the person, and they'll even come to in the Torah study to take it in a very light way and not do it properly. So I had actually a student at one stage, but he was an unbelievable guy. He had gone to Oxford, and he used to say, play hard and work hard, which I liked, because he really, whatever he did, he took very, I'm using the word serious, not frowning upon it, but he took it seriously. He did it properly. Whatever you do, what's a mensch? Whatever a mensch does, they do properly. So a livelihood, I think, I'm trying to work out what the motivation for livelihood is from this point of view, but it's something which is necessary. So once it's necessary, do it properly, and that itself, having or doing it properly, that will encroach on other areas of your life where you do that properly too. So one should do both. One should learn.
Question.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean, I thought you were done. Question. Do you think that there's any chance that conquer the earth is a way of saying tikkun olam?
It's definitely part of it. From the context, it really does seem to be in the physical realm. I think when we talk about tikkun olam, I think we all mean different things, actually. But I think part of that is definitely the spiritual meaning of it, that we should make this world a better place. We should take care of people. We should become elevated people. We should, right? Now we need a commensurate physical infrastructure and resources to do that. So it's definitely part of it. Does it mean it? I don't think so, exactly. I think it's a part of it rather than all of it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so he says, well, okay, so we're discussing what it means. We're discussing what are the things that take us away from taking our spiritual life seriously, taking responsibility for ourselves. So this busyness, that's the first one, right? This busyness, he says, that's what it means. It says, for the Creator, blessed be he, who created the evil inclination, also created the Torah as its antidote. As our sages of blessed memory have stated, as it were, speaking for God, I've created the evil inclination and I've created the Torah as its antidote. So not only is it, right, is it incumbent upon us to make time for Torah study, for thinking about ourselves as people and our elevation and our growth, but the very act of it leads to it, right? From the Torah is the antidote to the evil inclination. So that's a general and important rule, which he says, and if you go back to the beginning of this is a ladder of growth. He says that Torah leads to taking responsibility for oneself. And, I think that works in two different ways. One is it works in a very simple way. The Torah is a guide to elevation. So when you study it, you always have something, something, there's some guidance there, right? Every part of Torah, the great Vilna Gaon said, there's not a word in Torah you can't learn something from. To become a better person, a more elevated person, someone better to people, closer to God. There also is a kedusha. There's a holiness. There's a spirit, as it were, to the Torah, which the study thereof elevates you in a very general way, and the more elevated you are in this sense, is that you take a bit more responsibility for yourself. You become someone that's aware of the this aspect of life and working on it and wanting to work on it. So that is the what he calls the first detraction from what's called zihirut, is our awareness, taking responsibility for ourselves, being aware of what we're doing and working on that. Questions, comments, alternate speeches, what did this make you think about?
Rabbi, I just pressed a button and I can't get a full picture of the text.
I'm the
Oh.
same. I'm the same.
Oh, there's not a full, yeah, I should not be, we're no more text. Don't worry, it was my button, not yours.
Oh,
No
okay.
picture.
Yes.
I think, Rabbi, on about how do we approach work, I think we can do it with reverence. And I've sort of kept away from the word holy, but reverence in the sense that what you're achieving with it is God's gift to you to educate your children, have healthy lives, healthy bodies, a nice, house or whatever it is. So I think if you approach it with reverence, it's very difficult for me to, being in advertising, to be able to take a jar of peanut butter and advertise it and think it's holy. I could approach it reverently. I couldn't do that. So, it's very sort of lighthearted and almost. So if you see what it creates, what you can do with it, then I think you add a reverence to everything.
Thank you, I like that.
What about
I had sorry.
what about students who spend yeshiva, students who spend, like in Israel, all their time studying Torah, and they live on a pittance? We have some of people we know in Israel, and all they all have a family of 6 or 7 people. All they can afford is pasta. You know, they get a sort of.
You tell me what you think of that.
Historically, I believe it used to be just for a particular set of people or cream of students who would be supported, not becoming a way of life for anybody who, you know, would like to do it. Is that true? That's what I read.
I think so. I think so. The question is it really that successful?
Yeah, I find it sort of very disturbing because it's a very narcissistic, self-involved pursuit where it is expected that other people will take care of you. And there's not a way of taking responsibility for you, for your family. And other people do take care of you because of their independent and individual needs for you to do it. But you know, I think I was particularly lucky with my work where, in contrast to what was just said, where so many moments of so I'm a psychiatrist and a therapist, a psychoanalyst.
So you were dealing with the people that bought the peanut butter?
I was, but they were suffering in various ways, and so much of the work in its own rights felt spiritual, and the kind of engagement with others was just so absolutely spiritual is the only way that I can describe it. You know, I'm retired now and I miss it terribly. So, you know, that's the opposite. I luckily made a living while I was doing it. So
I think that's a very important thing that I think sometimes goes amiss about, you know, how society teaches children which careers to go into. You know, that the satisfaction from the work itself, now beyond the money or different to the money, is so important. You know, I know now there's a teacher crisis. There are no teachers. Kids don't want to become teachers. You know why?
They don't get paid well.
They don't get, right? There's such a cap on, you know, what do you mean? I could go into, you know, computers, I could go into social media, like things like that, where the sky's the limit. So it's a real, yeah, it's a real crisis. And I think, I don't know why, you know, but Jill, what you're saying is a message which I think really has to be taught. You know, I have made a decision to go into education. And it's extremely the fulfillment, even though a lot of my friends, my neighbors, whatever, are in business or have careers which are financially centric, let's say. Right. I think I get a lot more satisfaction out of life.
One of the ways that I think about it is it's still a currency. It's it's not money, but it's a currency that's worth beyond words. You know, how do you explain that? So
yeah,
good way to put it.
And we've been taught through our Judaism that if you change a person's life, it's like changing the world. And when you're a teacher and you see that light bulb go off in a child, I know Rabbi has shared with me, there's a child in his class who is not academically extremely strong, but artistically incredibly strong. And Rabbi has nurtured this and made this child feel so wonderful and shared her work with so many people. Who does that for that child, but not the Rabbi, our Rabbi Bergman. So I think that, you know, money, listen, I can sit here and say I don't have to worry because I don't have to worry about putting food on the table or putting clothes on. But I was also a teacher, and there is nothing as gratifying as making that child or any person feel valued.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and giving them something which is elevating, right, and meaningful.
One of the things that in my 45 years as an educator, I remember especially—
all these educators are coming out of the closet.
I do remember long before time when I was working in New York and before teachers there got some extra support, 3/4 of my salary went to, because I taught in the ghettos, went to buying supplies for my students, went to providing anything I could to help them achieve and succeed. And as Linda said, besides seeing that light bulb go off, seeing the humanity that comes out of it, not only for myself, but for the students, whether it be an adult, a child, a non-English speaking, it didn't matter. There is a connection that does not go out once they've moved into that spot. There is just that glow, the soul lights up.
Yeah.
Rabbi Bergman, you asked about there's so many educators, because when we all went to school, there wasn't many things open to us, many choices. And education was one of them.
That's interesting.
Because you're a woman?
Absolutely.
In the 1950s, I graduated high school in 1958, and I wanted to be a CPA. And I went to Maryland, enrolled in the CPA program, and I was the only woman with 500 men. And I wound up feeling so uncomfortable that I got back in line at the dean's office and stood there and said, now, what am I going to be now? What choices do I have? I don't want to be a nurse. I don't want to be a secretary. What are my choices? Education. And I'm glad that I made that choice. It worked out well.
A long way, baby. We've come a long way.
I know we have. But-
Listen, when I started teaching, I'm left-handed. I was not allowed to teach because when I faced the board, when I was writing on the board, my back would be to the students. I had to fight for that, because if you were right-handed and you were writing on the board, you could still see your students. If you were left-handed, I had to write like this so that I could work. And it took me 2 years before I was able to get a job as a result of that.
I have never heard of that. That's really interesting.
Wow. Okay, fantastic. Thank you all for sharing. It's always the best part of the class. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
We didn't go into the other 2 parts, Rabbi.
We will next week. Don't worry.
Rabbi, I just want to apologize for not showing up last week. I was out
Okay.
of town.
Don't worry.
Forgot to
Okay.
tell you. I'm
Have
sorry.
a good
Bye,
week, everyone. Stay safe, stay
Bye.
healthy.
You too.
Linda, take the job.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Bye.